All right, back to politics. The Republican nomination is all but decided, and as Hillary Clinton inches closer to clinching her party's nomination, the top candidates are focusing on the general election. Now they begin the search for the man or the woman who will round out the ticket. Emily Jashinsky is with the Young America Foundation. Taryn Rosencrans is the founder of the New Blue Interactive. They are both here for a lively debate. So, Emily, I want to start with you. First and foremost, who do you foresee would round out a Trump ticket? But also, I want to ask you about timing. When is it best for him to announce?
Yeah, I think for him it's going to be better to do it sooner rather than later because this campaign is really starting to kick up. What's going to be really interesting to see is he kind of has two lanes he can go down. He can try to neutralize Hillary Clinton's sort of identity politics aspect, that she's the first woman, she's very popular with minorities. Or he can try to appeal to the conservative base that he really needs to turn out for him in November. Good news for him is the Republican Party right now has some overlap. You could go with someone like Marco Rubio. You could go with a Susanna Martinez or a Nikki Haley. Those are all in his short list. I think we could expect something like that.
All right, Taryn, do you, A, agree with the short list picks, and B, do you think he should announce sooner rather than later, or should he wait for momentum perhaps later in the game?
Well, I think it's interesting. He runs into this problem of seeming too cartoonish. Everyone keeps talking about the pivot to being more presidential. And I think it's interesting because we're going to have to see if he picks somebody who's going to kind of continue that dialogue and make him seem more presidential. And if he doesn't do it on his own, he may need that VP on the ticket sooner rather than later. And I would agree with you to kind of help round that out. I think those are some definite picks that you could see. I mean, I think he's really got to have someone. In my mind, what would make sense would be someone that's an experienced politician, you know, so if it's a Gilmore or if it's a Chris Christie, if it's somebody that kind of puts those folks into the image of presidential and more suitable and sort of takes him out of this place he's been in for the primary.
But does that neutralize, like what you said, Hillary Clinton? I mean, she's a woman. Do you need a woman on the ticket, or do you not need a woman on the ticket these days?
I think with someone like Trump, I think it's going to go beyond that for him. With every statement he's had, I think if he puts a woman on the ticket, it's not going to change sort of anything with women that are out there. So I don't think he has to be honest. I think the opinion that women have of him, you know, albeit right now has been contentious and low, I don't think changing it by having him put a woman on, I think it would seem almost artificial.
All right, and Emily, I want to switch to the Democratic side just in the interest of time. We've seen Hillary Clinton sort of go a little bit farther left during the primary season. As she looks toward a running mate, is she going to be going farther left, or does she perhaps want to go farther right? I mean, this is a general election that we're talking about.
So she also has two lanes that are really interesting. She could go with someone like Tim Kaine, who goes for that everyday blue-collar, working-class vote that would cut potentially into what Trump has going for him right now. Or she could go for turnout. So how does Hillary Clinton get the Susan Sarandons to turn out when they have said, you know, emphatically...
That sounds like Elizabeth Warren.
Right. Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, those are two options for Hillary Clinton.
What about Julian Castro?
Same thing. I would say he's also right up there for her.
What happens at that point? She gets more momentum? Because we've talked about how she hasn't seen a huge turnout, the Democrats in particular, that is compared to the Republicans, and that's just in the primary.
And she is so unpopular with her own base. I mean, with young people, take a huge thing that gave President Obama an advantage in both elections that he went through. She's polling 30% behind Bernie Sanders with young people. So if she wants that turnout, it actually might be strategically wise for her to take someone like Elizabeth Warren or Cory Booker.
Agree or disagree on the Warren?
Well, I disagree because I think one of the interesting things about primaries is we forget the electorate changes. And so you might be running 30% behind Bernie Sanders, but that's not in opposition to Donald Trump, who I think that you're going to have a really fired up Democratic base with Donald Trump as the nominee. And so I think that changes things. So it doesn't become as necessary for her to try to turn out the far left.
But you agree with her on Julian Castro and Senator Cory Booker?
I think those are very popular and popular Democrats right now, and that part of this is about trying to engage and excite people because they're really fired up about him as a bully, you know, as a boogeyman, excuse me. And I think what we need to say, and then a little bit of a bully, and I think it's fun to kind of bring someone like Julian Castro and Cory Booker who have very positive images and very, like, they're all about, I mean, especially with Cory Booker, people think of him as very inspirational, right? And so it brings a different dynamic to it.
Is too predictable?
I mean...
You can both answer that, and that could be my last question. Too predictable, but people are excited about him,
I mean, it's always going, and the last time with Obama. It was like Obama, Clinton. Like, everybody wants that come-together moment when you have a primary, right? And our Republican picks were people that have been in the primary, because everybody wants that unity in the end, because you are a party, and you're like, oh, I liked both, you know?
I mean, he is just a Democrat for this cycle. I think someone that, what's really interesting to keep in mind is Donald Trump has actually been polling around 20% with Democrats, which will make something very interesting when you're looking for the VP pick. So that's something I think Hillary Clinton's campaign is going to need to keep in mind going forward. He might not necessarily be that boogeyman for the Democratic base.
Right. Well, we will certainly see. We hope to have you both back. Very interesting conversation. Thank you. We'll see if any of your picks turn out, and if so, get a lottery ticket.